Hey, Christopher McClure from So You Want to Play Guitar, and most of you probably recognize that, Smoke on the Water. The reason I played Smoke on the Water is because it demonstrates what I want to teach you today, which is the power chord. So why is this chord formation called the power chord? Well, I think it originally became called power chord because back in the 70s, 80s, heavy metal players, they would use a lot of distortion. And by just playing these three notes through a lot of distortion, it was a very powerful sounding chord. I tend to call it, I agree that it's a powerful chord, but I call it a power chord for some other reasons. The main one is that with this chord, you can play 50% of the music that you hear, right? A power chord is what I call a super modular chord, meaning you can move it around without sounding like you're out of key, right? There's no thirds in a power chord. And the thirds are the notes in a chord that make it sound minor or major, if it's a major third or if it's a minor third. And there's no thirds in a power chord, so you can just move it wherever you want. Right? So that's why I call it a power chord. It's you learn one formation, and you can play any chord you want with it, and there's so much music that you can play with it. All right, so cutting to the quick, what's a good way, if you don't know how to play a power chord, what's a good way to learn it? Okay, well, if you put your first finger on the first fret of the sixth string, and then you put your third finger on the third fret of the fifth string, and your pinky on the fourth string, the third fret of the fourth string. And then if you just play an arpeggio, you'll be able to hear if all those notes are sounding good. What's typical is that it's hard for beginners to reach their third finger up, and their finger tends to go down here somewhere, and then you'll get either a wrong note or you get like a muted note. So that's just be aware that that's one of the things you're going to be working on. All right, but once you do that first arpeggio, then you just move it over to the next set of strings. So now your first finger's on the first fret of the fifth string, your third finger is on the third fret of the fourth string, and your pinky's on the third fret of the third string. And once again, you do an arpeggio, and then you move it up. You just slide it up one. And then you move it back over to the first three strings, or actually the last three strings. And then you move that up, and then you move it over, then you go up, then you go over, then you go up, and over. So that's just that's a way you can practice power chords. Now, that's how you get the fingering, and that's how you get good sounding notes. But there's a thing, with power chords, you're only playing three notes. So if you notice, I'm gonna strum this power chord, right? And I'm gonna strum all six strings, but you're only gonna hear three, right? I'm gonna go like this, right? Those top notes are muted. Now, how did I do that? What I'm doing, if you notice, see, if I actually press down my first finger, that would be a bar chord. That would be a G minor bar chord. But I don't want to play I just want a power chord, which is a derivative of a bar chord. It's just the first three notes. So if I lift up my finger, instead of pressing down, if I just press down on that first, on the sixth string, and then I arc my finger, this fleshy part of my finger right here can mute those top strings. All right, so that works for the muting if you're playing a power chord that's that the tonic is on the sixth string. But what if you're playing a power chord and the tonic is on the fifth string? How do you play that so that that sixth string is muted and the top strings are muted? Well, the top strings, we already talked about that. But the way that I get that sixth string muted is that, if you notice, if I'm just pressing down on the tonic here with my first finger on, that's on the third fret of the fifth string, and I go, if I go, right, I'm going to get this sixth string sounding, and I don't necessarily want that in a chord, especially if I'm playing, say, here, or if I'm playing like here, right? It really sounds bad to put that in. But if I just sort of nudge my finger up against that sixth string, then I've got a mute, and then I can, all right? So that's how you do the muting. So so far you got this power chord exercise, arpeggio, right? Up, across, up. So there you're just getting the fingering, and then when you get your fingering pretty good, you're getting good sounding notes, you can get the formation to go quickly. Then when you start playing a song, right, and you want to be able to strum it, you don't want to be selective strumming all the time, you want to just be able to strum the strings. You do the muting, which is you arc the finger, and then if you're on the fifth fret with the first finger, then you just nudge it in there. Okay, so a couple of tips, which is actually to, when you're practicing the power chord, use the tips of your fingers. Right, you're going to get better sounding notes that way. And the other thing is that when you're doing the arpeggio, the tendency is to do all downstrokes. It's kind of easier, but what I recommend is to do down, up, down, up, down. Do alternating up and down strokes. You're going to, in general, when you play with up and down strokes, you're going to by far be able to play faster in the long run. So, and one more thing, that once you get pretty good on this power chord exercise, where you can, now there's a tendency to play the chord, right, and then pause, and then switch, and then go, and pause, and switch, and right. So what I recommend, that once you get comfortable enough to do this, and you can slow it down a little bit to get this initially, is to play continuously. In other words, with no gaps between the chords. And you can see right there, just from doing that exercise and just to do some of those chords in a random way, it's like, already I've got a song happening right there. So anyway, stay tuned for the advanced power chord video, which will be coming up soon. And regarding, just in general, regarding chords and chord progressions, I recommend the diatonic chord progression, and I've done it in the key of C and the key of D, and you can find those on, I have a YouTube channel called So You Want to Play Guitar, and then I have a Facebook page called So You Want to Play Guitar. You can find those videos on both of those platforms. And so look for the diatonic chord progressions in C and D, and also stay tuned for the advanced power chord video that will be coming soon. Once again, my name is Christopher McCore, and I'm from SoYouWantToPlayGuitar.com, and hope this was helpful.